The World Bank has approved a $208 million grant for Zambia. This will help the Southern African nation address the social and economic impacts of drought. Zambia, Malawi, and Zimbabwe have all declared a state of disaster because of the drought, which has hit food production and livelihoods of millions of people. On that note, following the impact of El Nino, the IMF expects Zimbabwe's growth to fall to 2% this year from 5.3% in 2023. But the lender projects an uptick for 2025, with a growth expected to come in at 6%, largely pegged on its ZiG currency. Development economist based in Harare, Prosper Chitambara, joins us with his analysis of the economy and the expected prospects. Good afternoon to you, Prosper. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Let's just talk about just how severe this drought has been and what it actually has done to the economy, and how, based on the fact that so much of the economy is also agriculture.
Yes. So it has had a very significant adverse impact on crop production. For example, maize production is declined by 70% from last year. So that's a massive decline. There's also weakened our capacity for hydroelectric generation. So the country is experiencing power outages. Obviously, that has impacted negatively on the business sector. So our imports this year are definitely going to increase. Last year, our imports averaged about 8 billion. So this year, we are expecting probably imports to be around $9 billion. Sure. Our exports definitely are going to go down. Last year, we were at about 7 billion. So this year, probably 6.5 or even 6 billion. So it means the trade deficit, obviously, is going to widen. So that will put pressure on the balance of payment position, which will also weaken our macroeconomic sustainability, because that will mean that more US dollars are actually leaving the country because of that balance of payment deficit situation. So pressures obviously also on pricing, especially food prices, even though there's actually been a bit of stability in terms of our inflation numbers for both May and June, following the introduction of the ZiG, the new currency.
Yes, that's what I really want to speak about. I want to speak about the ZiG because, of course, when you speak of imports and exports, how the ZiG performs really has an impact on how the country then fares. Based on the performance of the ZiG to date, is this a cushion to the realities of El Nino and the impact of it?
Yeah, I think it is definitely. It obviously brings about a bit of relief because no economy can actually prosper or grow sustainably in an environment of instability. So I think it brings a lot of relief to consumers, to the business sector. But of course, the challenge for Zimbabwe has always been how to sustain that stability. So obviously, time is going to tell. But if we are disciplined enough to stick to the tight monetary and fiscal policy regime, I'm sure that will obviously go a long way in terms of ensuring sustainability in terms of macroeconomic stability.
What does that tight monetary and fiscal policy look like at this point, Prosper?
Well, number one, it means on the fiscal side, the overdraft facility, the Reserve Bank obviously has to be kept within the prescribed limits as per the Public Finance Management regulations and act or legislation. And then also it means in terms of even money supply growth, the central bank is actually also targeting that. Was last year, narrow money supply grew by about 1,800%, which was actually the highest in the world. So the central bank, even in terms of the issuance of the physical ZiG, they've also tried to control that so as not to flood the market with excess liquidity. So they've tightened money supply growth from the monetary policy perspective.
We also see the IMF are quite still bullish on Zimbabwe there. They are anticipating that even though this year might be a difficult year, next year could, be a much better year based on very specific fundamentals here. But also what it does tell us here is of like maybe a renewed relationship between the likes of the IMF and Zimbabwe. Let's talk about that one as well.
Yes. As you know, Zimbabwe set up a dialogue platform in terms of arrears clearance, which is bringing together a number of stakeholders, including the National Monetary Fund. So I think if we're able to stabilize the economy and begin to make substantive and significant debt repayments, obviously that's going to improve our relations, not just with the IMF, but also with the rest of the international community. It also makes it easier for us to be able to attract capital at cheaper rates. Currently, we are borrowing money at very, very high interest rates. Last year, we borrowed, I think, about $200 million US. This year, we're also expecting to borrow probably more than that. So whatever borrowings we're actually contracting, we are borrowing at very, very high interest rates, because that also includes our premium on account of our huge areas. So, but again, next year's growth outlook will also depend on our ability to receive good rainfall. So our economy still remains an agro-based economy. So what it actually means is that when the agricultural sector sneezes, it means the rest of the economy actually catches a cold. So if we have a good agricultural season this year, it definitely will have a positive impact in terms of our growth outlook for next year.
I also want to touch on issues of corruption. I think that's also come up here on, as we see Zimbabwe on this very positive trajectory here. Like many countries, I think South Africa is no different here, Prosper. Corruption poses a threat to our reputation and to, our ability to really see sustainable growth. Is this something that's still hanging over the heads in Zimbabwe, as it does in countries like South Africa?
Yeah, it's a major issue. It's a major challenge. One time we did a study which actually showed that corruption imposes rather a 20% premium on doing business in Zimbabwe. We haven't witnessed significant progress in terms of our anti-corruption reform agenda, for example, in terms of even convictions. So I think it's an area that we need to do more. And also linked to that is the reform of our parastatals, because a lot of the corruption is also taking place in the state-owned enterprises. So there hasn't been a lot of movement, a lot of progress in terms of those institutional reforms that are critical in terms of anchoring confidence, economic confidence. So we are hoping that probably this year, the government is going to make more progress. And obviously that will be critical in terms of ensuring that our economy grows sustainably.
And before we wrap, that issue of confidence, where are we faring in terms of business and consumer confidence? Also considering that no country has been spared from the global economic shocks, and we're all trying to make sense of our domestic economies against that backdrop.
So in terms of business confidence, yes, I think there's been an improvement. But in terms of capacity utilization in the manufacturing sector, there has been a decline between 2022 and 2023. And we're expecting that declining trend to extend to this year, 2024, on account of the drought. In terms of consumer confidence, we've seen the inflation is actually negative territory, which points to low levels of aggregate demand, which also points to challenges with respect to consumer confidence. So I think those are areas that would need, but I'm hoping that if we're able to sustain the stability, obviously that will enhance business and consumer confidence.
Well, Prosper, thank you for giving us this 101. It's been a pleasure speaking to you this afternoon. That was development economist Prosper Chitambara.